All right, welcome back. It's been a year for Beers, Blazers, Basketball, Galactica.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, nice.
Hey.
Uh, yeah, back to talk about the draft. That seems to be the only compelling thing in the last year. Even though I think the Blazers did have some interesting storylines, but still nothing compelling enough to hop on the mic. Hopefully this year, but we've got 2 weeks until the NBA draft. So wanted to look at the 2025. So we'll do some big board stuff today, and then next week we'll do kind of a mock draft where we switch off, one, two, three, four, all the way through, at least to the lottery, and then maybe talk about post lottery. Um, but first, as is in the name, Ben, welcome, and what kind of beers are you drinking recently?
Oh yeah, that's it's great to be back. It's been a little bit of a hiatus to GMAX point here. But yeah, we're happy to be back and talking some hoops, specifically today around the Blazers, obviously. And I think there's a lot of there's some obviously interest as we approach the NBA draft here coming up in a couple of weeks. And yeah, but I think I said probably echoed a similar sentiment on the a year ago, but I'm just looking forward to the summer here in the Pacific Northwest. Always such a great time to be in the Pacific Northwest. We got great weather. And with that awesome weather and all the outdoor activities comes some good, in my case, pilsners and lagers. Again, if folks watched either or one of the few episodes last year, you know that I like a lighter style beer, especially this time of year. So I'll do the occasional hazy, but I'm really into still just my lagers, pilsners, my kolsches. I like one of the ones I've had recently is like Alameda Brewing. They have I think it's called P Town Pills or something. Just a good German style lager or German style pilsner. Nice, light, refreshing. Whatever you're doing outdoors. I like the fact that
E-Town
yeah, P
Pilsner.
Town
Yeah,
Pills. I think yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's good.
and I'm into obviously PDX here. So yeah, I think that's one of my top ones. I also have been playing a lot more golf recently, so I enjoy a nice, like a Japanese style frame, Japanese style lager out on the golf course. After 9 or 18 holes. So anything light just seems refreshing, and again, just some good beers. How about you, GMAC?
Yeah,
What's in your
yeah,
fridge?
and I'm a big hazy
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
guy, but yeah, not my favorite brewery because their IPAs have been lacking, but I have been drinking a Freem hazy IPA. That's just what it's
hmm.
called. I don't have any cool name.
Yeah,
It's been pretty good. And then my staples, Fort George, the electric surfboard, which is a double
yeah.
IPA, not a hazy, has been really good. And actually, I'm headed out to Fort George Brewery this weekend for a little Father's Day. I think I said that last year when we were doing one of these.
Nice. Yeah.
So we'll see if there's any new ones that I try and bring back, and maybe on the next pod we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But
That's
let's
awesome.
jump into basketball so we don't waste everyone's time that doesn't drink. I'm going to go ahead. So what we're going to do is we each have done a big board, and it's from the perspective of us, not if we were the Blazers, not what we think other teams would do, and like for a mock draft, we're not putting that. We're putting in players that we like, and I think just naturally because we're Blazers fans, it probably will be a little Blazer centric.
Yeah.
So it'll be from, hey, I probably wouldn't take this guy as high as maybe another guy because I know what the roster is. And I know best fit is a thing. I
Yeah.
consider best fit making sure that you don't have like four point guards because you can't get them all on the floor at the same time, type of thing.
Right.
But yeah, that's general logic that we're going to go with. So and then we'll do kind of a confluence of both of ours, a combination of both of our mocks or our big boards as we go through this. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay,
Yeah. I can see it now, GMAC.
there we go. And to make this a little bit better, I will go. full screen. There we go.
Perfect.
All right. So, yeah, why don't you start off? I think we know who is number one on both of our boards. It's pretty consensus, but
Yeah, Walter Clayton Jr. Yep.
well, yeah, champion. Whoever wins the championship has to be the
That's right.
best.
That's what you go with.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just one generational talent, really, like super high floor, super high ceiling pick. There's probably others. You're going to go ahead and add them here without me even saying the name, but yeah, it is capture the flag season, Cooper Flag. Just all around generational talent. I think he's obviously the consensus number one pick. You've known I've been on the flag train for a little while now. Like I think he reclassified to gain eligibility and enter the NBA even earlier. So obviously he was at Duke last year. He's just over 18 now. So obviously just kind of the sky's the limit with him. He's really, I would describe him as obviously, as far as the generational talent goes, I think even more so is just he's kind of a renaissance type of player. Like he just does a little bit of everything and he does a little bit of everything really well in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
So averaged 19, 8 and 4 lone season at Duke, 48, 39 from 48, 39 splits, 39% from three. That's higher than I thought he would shoot. And then just his combine measurements, 6'8" barefoot with a 7-foot wingspan. So he's really that in addition to his unbelievable defensive play. You're kind of just getting the all around package in Cooper Flag. So, what are your thoughts on him, G-Mac?
Yeah. I mean, I just think the question is, a lot of been going out about like, is he a number one option on a
Right,
great team?
right.
I think that's the only question. But I mean, if you end up with, I've seen a couple comparisons, not necessarily in terms of play style, but an impact of like a Scottie Pippen, who I consider one of the best players of all time, even though he was usually a second banana, right?
Right.
Or even to a lesser extent, but still great, like a Sean Marion
Yep.
with a better shot, those kind of things, a little bigger. But I don't think you would ever be mad with any of those results. I think it's fair to say that he'll at least be a multi-time All-Star. So,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not an MVP candidate per se, but you never know. And I think that's a safe bet. So let's not waste time talking about who number one is. I think number
Right.
two, we probably have the same guy as well. Who do you have for number two?
Yeah, I'm sure we have the same guy, Dylan Harper,
Yeah.
at our number two slot. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about him, Graham, and I'll play off what you say about him.
Yeah, I think he's a big guard. I like the comparison of like kind of a bigger Jalen Brunson because
Yeah.
he's not unathletic, but he's not athletic in terms of jump out the gym or being
Right.
really fast, which is the same with Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson is very good hand-eye coordination. He's strong, which, I think Dylan Harper projects as like a strong guard, kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think he probably is less of a scorer and more of a playmaker than a Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a big-bodied guard, and I think that, whether he's a true point guard or he's playing these days kind of positionless basketball, as they all say, like he has
Right.
enough playmaking to be the lead ball handler, and maybe you just have like we've seen a lot in the playoffs that you've pointed out, smaller defender type guys that maybe guard the other team's point guards, and he's shifted up to the weaker of a two or a three. So
Yep.
yeah, well, I think he'll be good. I think he's not going to be Killian Hayes,
No.
but yeah,
Shout out Kevin O'Connor
yeah,
from Yahoo now. Still on the Killing Hayes bandwagon. Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think I'm a bit lower on Harper than most people, but I feel like he in watching highlights from him recently from his Rutgers season is just I do appreciate that he operates at his own pace and kind of
yeah.
forces his defender to play at his pace. He's also one thing that I didn't really recognize earlier on that I was looking at his stats later on recently is just that he's a really good finisher at the rim.
Hmm.
So that is something where that's encouraging. I think for a player that's going from college level basketball to an NBA level, like where the athleticism and the size of those wing defenders and centers and power forwards just get that much bigger, and you have to
Yep.
be able to be crafty around the rim and be able to finish around the rim. So I think he's the total package for the most part. Love his development next to Wembanyama. Obviously, we're not talking about draft today, but at the number 2 slot, pretty comfortable thinking that the Spurs would keep the pick and go with
Yeah,
him.
and this might be blasphemy for Blazer fans, but another guy that he reminds me of that's not as contemporary is he gives me a little bit of Brandon Roy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
big guard,
yeah,
playmaker, I think Brandon probably had a little more sneakier bounce, but when you said plays at his own pace, like that was
right.
Brandon.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. Cool. All
Yeah,
right, number three, maybe we start differing here.
I'm sure we do on this one.
Okay, so I had Ace Bailey here. Who did you
Okay.
have?
I have VJ Edgecombe.
Okay. So I have VJ at 6.
Yeah, I figured we'd differ quite a bit. I know you're a little bit lower on Edgecombe, but
Yeah,
can I
yeah.
make my case
But
for him?
we can throw Edgecombe in there. But what's interesting is I heard um that he's been telling teams that he's a point guard and not a shooting guard. And I don't know because one of my issues is that he is kind of small. I know it says 6'5" here, but he came in under 6'4" with shoes. He is very athletic. I don't think he's like Shaden Sharp athletic though. And his wingspan isn't as extensive as Sharp, for example.
Hmm.
But I see the allure of him. I just think my small guard problem. Like
Yeah,
he seems a little combo guard. And now that he's saying he's a point guard, I like that from a size perspective better, but I have not seen point guard skills out of him from what I've watched. I guess he averaged what 3 assists a game. But yeah, we'll see. What do you like about him?
I just like his crazy athleticism and explosiveness. I like the block rate that he had on the defensive end as a guard. Um, he had that dunk, I think, on Gonzaga. I know you don't want to isolate. Like there's lots of like
Yeah,
incredible dunkers that go from NCAA to the NBA, but I I just like his evolution. I do think that they're like I think the question I have for him is if he can match the technical skills with how athletic he is. I would say yeah, Shaden Sharp on the Blazers, obviously probably one of the best dunkers, top 2 or 3 dunker in the NBA, for his size now. I think VJ is actually right there with him in my estimation. I just like his ability to create space, be a shot maker, even though the shot, was a little bit questionable at times. I think he shot around 34% from 3 this year. Pretty solid true shooting percentage, but I do just like the fact that he kind of reminds me he might be the Victor Oladipo type. He might
yeah,
be he might be kind of a hybrid between if he meets his ceiling, can he be like that Victor Oladipo combined with like Donovan Mitchell type, right? Like
yeah.
do a little bit on both ends of the floor. So that's what's intriguing to me about him.
Yeah, yeah, and I put Ace Bailey on here. I don't know if you have him at 4, but the reason I'm putting him on just because that's who we're kind of comparing,
Yeah,
and I have really big problems with Ace in terms of like decision making. But
yeah,
he's like, they say 6'10" here. He's 6'8",
yeah.
a shade
But
under
again,
six
without
eight.
shoes, right?
Yeah, without shoes.
Without shoes. Yeah,
Yeah, pretty athletic, moves pretty well. His ball handling is average.
yeah,
But I think that's something he's not bad, but um, I just think because he takes such hard shots, he still makes them, and
I
it's like
know.
if he does change where, hey, I can get an easier shot, but then he has that ability to like I can still pull up whenever I want, basically, kind of like a Kevin Durant, where
Yeah,
you're taller than most of the people you're going against, and it's like this isn't that bad of a shot for me. So I still like that, and I think a lot of it is like prototype of if you're looking at a shooting guard or small forward that's 6'8" and can shoot and is pretty athletic. Like it's hard to find that. There's not a lot of them, and
yeah.
even though I hate some of that and how, Rutgers was horrendous, but a lot of pundits have come out and been like, well, they were really horrendous outside of the two guys,
Outside of those two, Harper and
who were
Bailey. Yeah,
both 18 years old, right?
right.
And like, that's not a storied program or anything. So that's why I would still have him really high. So who did you have at four?
I have him. Yeah. So we just have him switched. I think you have
Okay.
Ace at three, and then I have VJ at four. So the one thing I will say is just to kind of back up what you're saying is when I watched a couple Rutgers games this year, and it would be like where the defense just kind of like the
Three
slightest
guys
pressure,
on him. Yeah.
yeah, the slightest pressure on him, and it just felt like, oh, well, like you're in a really
Panic.
bad spot now. What are you going to do? And then he would make the
Yeah.
shot, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I
Yeah.
guess that's okay, right?
Yeah, you wonder if maybe he didn't trust his teammates a little bit too,
Yeah, yeah,
and like if he goes to Philly, like that dog don't hunt with all their
yeah.
options. So
Still shot it, like to your point, still shot it pretty well.
yeah.
Right
Good
around
rebounder.
35 splits. Good rebounder. Actually, had decent rim protector as well at his size.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
I think he's a it's a mental thing more with
yeah,
him.
right.
So I had VJ at six. The guy I actually had at four was Trey Johnson.
Okay.
Who did you have at
I
five,
ha-
I guess?
I have him at five. Trey Johnson as
Okay.
well. So
So I
perfect
think we
time.
can pencil him in. I just think he's, I don't want to say he's short. I think he's more of a small forward, but he's 6'5", but he just can shoot
He's
so
just
well.
lights
It's like
out.
he has that thing you can't teach. And he does have, it's not like I like Con Knuckle a lot. We'll get to him probably here shortly,
Yeah.
but like he almost is purely a shooter, or like if you close him out, one dribble pull up type of guy. Whereas
Yep.
Trey Johnson's like his handle isn't great, but he does try to get to the basket. I think that's kind of the difference. He's a little more athletic, and he's he puts a lot of pressure on a defense. Like he's always looking for a shot, and he has been a good defender as well. But I think I mean, he averaged what 20 points a game as a
Yeah.
freshman. Yeah, 19.9.
Yeah.
He
20.
only
Yeah.
shot, yeah, 43%, but like taking a lot of threes, once he shot at a high clip. So I think that's a good guy, especially plug and play, like your prototypical 3 and D guy.
Underrated athleticism, like 38
Yeah.
inch vert at the combine, 8'2" standing reach, just hits kind of from any, like you just feel like when he has the ball in his hands, he's at like there's a good chance that he's gonna if he shoots, he's gonna make it. So he's
Yeah.
just one of those, he's gonna pull, guys quote, he's gonna pull, like you just don't know even from like 28 feet. He'd be like, he shoots 40%, and that at the next level, I can see that being a real, obviously a real asset. He's just a flat out scorer, really. So I
Yeah,
like.
I think he's a fairly safe pick. Like at worst, he'll be like a solid bench player, you know.
I
Like
think he's pretty. I think he has a pretty high floor. Yeah. So I think
someone
that's
compared him, probably not the athlete, but to Terrence Ross, Jefferson's own.
yeah, right.
Because he was pretty prolific as a shooter, but mostly known for athleticism. So
Yep.
yeah. All right. Who would you have next here that we
I
can?
think we're pretty similar on this, but you already mentioned him. Conkinipple is who I have at six.
Yep, me too.
So we have
I
a
mean, I have
little.
him at five, but it's the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. So we're
Yeah.
yeah. So and just for me for Con, he obviously had a phenomenal season at Duke. One of the things that I notice about in interviews with Kaman Malowich as well as obviously Cooper Flagg is just like how like how complimentary they are of Conkinipple. Like there's something to that where his game
He's a
also
team
evolved.
player type
He's
of
a
thing.
team player.
Yeah.
His game just kind of evolved during the course of the season. Just had unbelievable touch, developed more of that like ball handling presence. I think as the season went on, I think he shot like what 48, 49% on spot up threes this year. That's just
Oh,
incredible
his
at
shooting's
his
just
size.
insane. Yeah.
My concern with him is what you would maybe suspect in that I think he might be targeted a bit defensively. He does have good size,
He did
but
come in shorter, like he's listed 6'7" here. He came
six
in at
five.
6'5", yeah. Which
So you think, you know,
yeah.
so my point being, I know we differ a little bit on, defensive strategy, but like he'll just be one of those like, you know, bigger guards slash smaller wings that'll you'll kind of have to scheme for on the defensive end. Like, can
Yeah.
he develop the ability to guard bigger players? Can he stay with smaller guards? So that's some of the risk
He's
with him.
pretty
But
strong, which is good.
he is strong enough. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And I just think he's a really really heady player. Like I kind of see him if we're modeling against like current NBA players or recent NBA players. Maybe can he develop into an Austin Reeves type? Can he be that Gordon Hayward type? Not as big as Gordon Hayward,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I just think, I mean, his shooting is so elite that
yeah,
it's doesn't really matter, and as long as he's not horrendous at defense, it'll be fine. So, um, yeah, he'll fit in pretty much anywhere too with his ability to shoot, which is always a good thing, that versatility of like, yeah, we can use shooting.
yep,
I think this is probably where it's going to get a little crazy.
yeah. I bet we start differing pretty.
Yeah. So my seven, actually, why don't we go with your seven? Who's your seven?
Okay, so I'm excited about my seventh pick. I have Kaman Malowicz at
Ooh,
seven. I and again, we're talking Blazers specific here. This is just our overall. This is also kind of just a
sure.
combination of Blazer specific, but to GMAC's point, like also just our own big boards. I love a rim running big to start, right?
You said rim running. Okay, yeah.
Rim running big, like
Not rimming. Yeah.
right, defensive anchor. The other thing that kind of stands out, and GMAC, you can appreciate that I played fantasy hoops for a long time, but I'm always looking for those like out of position stats, so to speak. And the one thing that stands out from Malowicz is that he's a good free throw shooter
Yeah.
at 70, I think 77%, something like that. So
He,
that's
when he
phenomenal.
shot from the field too, he shot 71%.
Yeah, like 74% true shooting percentage, which is obviously like he's just dunking and
Yeah.
close to the hoop a lot, obviously. So
But like the free throws he's not going to necessarily be like a DeAndre Jordan, right?
right.
Yeah, he might be still dunking all the time, but you won't have to worry about him getting fouled and not hitting shots, right?
The other thing that I found really intriguing about him is that when I watched him during the course of the season and the tournament, is that while he can't necessarily stay with quicker perimeter players, he has the ability to like actually hedge pretty well and get down on the defensive end on the perimeter,
And he can
unlike
chase
a
them
lot
when
of
they get
other
behind
bigs, even that are rim running, like a
him.
Gafford or a Lively type for Dallas. He like I'm just really intrigued by him. I also think from a Blazers perspective that if we did, I don't think he would be available at 11. I think he'll go earlier than that, but I do think like it kind of fits Chauncey Billups' scheme and strategy for like how he
Sure.
likes to
Sure.
run his defensive schemes.
Yeah.
So what do you have to add to that? Like I know it's probably
Well,
not your
so
seven.
I have him at 14.
Okay, yeah, so quite a bit different.
And
Yep.
and I don't disagree with any of the stuff you're saying, but similar to my, I wouldn't say anti-Klingon, but like I do feel like you can find these guys easier, like a rim protecting, rim running big outside of the lottery.
Right.
So he's still, I mean, depending on what you consider like Colin Murray Boyles, he's still my first true big
Right.
on my board. I
Right.
just have him, uh, yeah, 14th into
You
the
have him low.
lottery. And
Yep.
that's not to say when we do a mock draft that he could go higher. But again, my personal big board, he would be there. And it's like, okay, if he's still available here, like you have to take him is kind of my thought. But I like a lot of these other guys ahead of him. The guy I had is the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and I usually do hate these guys too. Small guard Jeremiah Fears.
Okay.
I I have a fear, no pun intended, that he's going to end up being like what we wanted Scoot to be.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that he has that I really like, he's not a great shooter, but his handle is so good.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like he controls the ball. Like a lot of point guards have a good handle because, they don't lose the ball or they can get out of traffic, but his handle's like break people down handle.
Yep.
Like I'm not going to say he's Kyrie or anything, but I just watch him and like he does get downhill a lot. 17, 4 and 4 as a really young freshman, and he shot, it's 43% overall, and that was with some bad three-point shooting. But just have a belief that he his downhill ability with his speed, and he's a little bigger than Scoot in terms of height, but they have a similar build.
Right.
But I just I can see him going to somewhere like Brooklyn or something like that, where it's like, okay, here you go. Kind of how Utah did with Keontae George, but just a better finisher. I guess that's the thing. He's a pretty good finisher. He has a nice little pull up. He's just got to expand that to more of a 3-point game. I don't know if you where did you have fears?
I had him so almost opposite. I had him at 14.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we basically switched Malowich and Fears. I,
And
I
that was a hard one for me because I think if I was the Blazers, we'll get to these guys later, but I'd rather have some of these bigger point guards than Fears if I was picking.
yeah, same.
Like if Fears, Yakashionis, and Demeen were all available at 11, Fears would not be my pick. So, but I do think he has value for someone that doesn't have, like, if you're looking at him more as like a star potential, I think, uh, I think that's who you'd want to.
I can understand that. My concern with Fears, just specifically, I won't touch on it too much, but just a few things. Almost a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah.
Know he's got a tight handle. Know he's a good finisher, but that and just the size for what the style of play that he plays, 6'2.5" without shoes.
Hmm.
Also, only a 6'5" wingspan. Like
Yeah.
I have concerns at the next level of like, okay, yeah, you can finish and at the NCAA level. A little bit of concern over that, as well as just his 3-point percentage. Like he shot it at like 28, 29% from
Yep.
three. So those are some red flags to me, which is why he's down further on the list. Fully realizing that he's mocked like as an aggregate, I think much higher, probably around this range.
Yeah, totally. Just like Malawak was
Yeah,
with me. I think
yeah,
I don't know what it is with me of him because as I've said before, I don't like small guards, but he has like that it factor. And I just feel like you don't see guys with that kind of handle as a
yeah.
freshman coming into the league.
He
So
very well could be a
it's
great player at the
it's
level.
the one of the complaints with Scoot was that like I don't think he had any elite skill.
Right.
Like he had really good athleticism, but like I see this as like, oh, he's by far the best ball handler in the draft. So I
Yep.
won't spend too much time on Fears. Who do you
Yep.
have at 8 or 9?
We might match this one. I have Kasparis Yakuchonis
Yep, me too.
at
Yep.
my eighth and now this ninth. Yeah. So I mean, I'll
I
start
love
out. I'll
him.
start with them. 6'5" without shoes, big, crafty guard. I love that he just puts defenders in an uncomfortable spot. He just had some passes in watching his games this year where even having like a bird's eye view of the court, you're like, how did he even find that player,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And some
um,
flair too.
he just has some flair. I'm confident he can maintain being like a crafty scorer at the next level. I realize that I think he had a forearm injury like mid-season,
Yeah.
really impacted his shooting. And I think it was like Danny Shower, Jay Kyle Mann on the Ringer that was talking about like he shot actually I think 41% from three pre-injury.
Yeah.
So I really I if he's available when Blazers pick and kind of in our range,
Yeah.
boy, that's a hard one to pass up. I
Yeah.
just
That
love all
that's
of it.
my guy
Yep,
unless any of these top six
yep,
don't fall further, right? Like if Khan through Cooper fall, then I would take them. But of that next set, like I just think too, his size is one thing, but he also does have the ability to play off the ball. So it's
he
like
does.
you can play him with Scoot and you can play him with Shaden and you can play him with, I mean, I'm assuming Anthony won't be for long, but like you can go double guard and he can guard the worst of the shooting guard or small forward because he
Yep,
has that good size and like he's strong. And
he's
I think
strong.
they say he's not athletic, like he can't jump, but he has a really quick first step, which I think is very important for a point guard, right? He's not like John Wall or De'Aaron Fox like sprinting down the court, but like his handle is good. He did have some turnover problems, but I think you kind of live with that. Tyrese Halliburton has some of those problems too, and you're like, it's worth it, you know?
Yep,
So, yeah, I see him as a real strong playmaker, and the Blazers in particular would really need that. They just don't have a lot of that. Um, okay.
I love him. I love him on the Blazers. I
Yeah.
hope we have a shot on him.
Yeah, that'd probably be my pick. Who's your next guy?
My next guy is also a playmaker. You mentioned him earlier, Igor Demin.
Okay, I have him just one spot below, so
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
So just high basketball IQ, one of the things that shot lights out at the combine, which I know that's not a game setting, but I would have had concerns had he like shot really poorly at the combine as well, because he obviously had those concerns in season from a Blazers perspective. And I think this has been mentioned, but he does have a lot of similarities to Denny Avdia. I think he's probably, just because he can see over the defender at such a
Yeah.
high level, because he's just so tall at 6'8", 6'9", he's probably the best passer in this draft, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
I think he just possesses that ability just to have, like, again, the bird's eye view over a defender. And if he can develop a consistent shot, I can see him easily being the top three guy in this draft. That might be a little bit bold, but
And mo most people think that his shot will be at least okay.
yeah,
The complaints I've heard are like defensively.
yeah,
Um,
same.
but like I would never expect a 6'8", 6'9" guy to be guarding like point guards all the time.
Right.
Like I think if again, if you look at a Blazers perspective, let's say he's starting like most likely, Tumani or Sharp or Denny will be guarding the best two perimeter
Right.
players on the other team.
Right.
And at 6'8", 6'9", he's going to be able to guard most threes and fours at least without having
Yep.
to worry about the foot speed issue. But it's some of it's not foot speed. Some of it's just maybe he hasn't played enough. So
Right.
I think that can go. But yeah, his passing, he's not Magic Johnson, but in terms of like his height, being able to see over everything, like and this wasn't just like highlights, like he does it all the time. He whips these balls like basically like he's playing frisbee with his
Yeah.
right hand and just whips it cross court, like into the corner right
Yeah.
to a guy. And you're like, okay, like that's pretty good. And he is pretty athletic too for his height in terms of like dunking and getting to the basket. So
Obviously, not even close. Like, his ceiling is not even close, obviously, to this like top three player all time. But just his like his cross court passing sometimes reminds me of like those single hand passes that LeBron will
yeah.
throw to like a
Yeah.
baseline shooter, like a corner three shooter. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
And
So
I've seen some comparisons to Giddy, but I actually think he's much more athletic than Giddy
right,
is.
yeah,
Obviously, there's other intangibles, but like people have also compared him to Avdia. So like
I like the Avdia comparison.
not as
That's one of your
strong,
favorites, but yeah.
of course, but maybe not yet. So, um, okay,
Okay,
my
you get
next
you.
guy that I had. Oh, what'd you
Yeah,
have?
I was gonna say no. You start with one because I picked I think the last couple. So
Yeah, I had Colin Murray Boyles here. I
okay,
I can't quite figure him out.
yeah,
Um, I think I like him as like a Draymond Green type of
yeah.
guy. Maybe with a little more ball handling going to the basket,
Hmm.
and less playmaking, but like defensively, he's just very disruptive. I don't think he'll ever be like a star, but I think
Yeah,
he's the guy that like, hey, if he's coming off the bench or he's starting, like you're just not gonna have to worry about him.
yeah.
Like he's gonna play good defense, he's gonna make the right play. He can't really shoot, but like he's a plug and play guy, probably from even when he's young. So I had to put him there above, some of these other guys that are below him seem like more projects and
Right.
project a higher ceiling. But he seems to be like, oh yeah, he's going to be a solid NBA player.
I think he'll be at least a rotation player. I have him outside of my top 14. But I just have concerns that he's considered a bit of a tweener.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that at his size, he can't shoot the three at all, which I'm at least looking for. And I realize he can develop that potentially. We've seen other wings develop a 3-point shot like in the league. So if he can do that, I think he's going to be very valuable. I love his playmaking but just that tweener status, and
Yep.
it's just going to be if he can start making a shot, and provide that value on the court. I think he'll be heavily in rotations. I can see him being an eventual starter on a good team if he can do that. I
Yeah.
just have some questions around that.
Yeah, not so much the playmaking, but the other stuff. I think it's almost similar to Jeremy Grant when he came in the league.
Yeah,
He's
right.
like known as like a defensive guy.
Yeah, true,
Like, is he
true.
a power forward, small forward? And then yeah, he just now well, I mean, even last year he shot horribly from the field, but his 3-point shooting was still around 40%. Like he
That's a
became a 20-point guy when he started shooting. So
that's a really good comparison. Yeah, Jeremy Grant was not in any way, shape, or form and like offensive any sort of offensive player when he came to the league. He has really developed that shot. So if he can do that, yeah, he's really valuable. He's a just absolutely elite defender. So
All right, almost done with the lottery here. So we just talked some Colin Murray Boyles. Who did you have in this next spot?
yeah, we've talked about this player quite a bit in the past, like basically directly after the combine as well. But this is kind of a unique prospect in that he's kind of bounced around a few schools, started at the D3 level, but I really like Cedric Coward in
Yep.
this range as well.
I have him at
Um,
13, so pretty close.
okay, gotcha. So not too far away. I didn't know if you'd have him in the top in your top 14, but 18, 7-4 last season with Washington State. Started with, shout out to our relatively local D3 school in this area in Salem, Oregon.
Same conference as us. Yeah.
The Willamette Bearcats. And then he transferred to Eastern Washington for a season or two and then ended up at Washington State. I think he followed his coach from Eastern Washington to Washington State.
And was planning to go to Duke next year.
Exactly, exactly. So bit of an older prospect, I think. I think he's probably pretty close to 22 now, if memory serves.
Yep.
Uh, he had a season-ending shoulder surgery at Washington State, but in those 5 or 6 games, he was like an 18, 7, and 4 or 5 guy.
Yeah.
Just really well-rounded.
56% from the field, 40% from three.
Yeah, it just like you
Six
start to make,
six, 7 foot wingspan, pretty good athleticism, known as a good defender. I mean, it's kind of like what's not to like.
I think his age is kind of a deterrent a little bit, but
Yeah,
that doesn't really bother me in
yeah, me
today's day
neither.
and age, just because it feels like there's more player movement regardless. So I'm okay. I mean, we took obviously as Blazer fans, we took Dame Lillard when he was like 22. It doesn't really bother me to have
Yeah.
a more well-rounded, like evolved player coming into the league. So I'm perfectly comfortable in this range. And honestly, if he worked out really well for us in like a single or group workout, probably be more of a single workout. But I would be happy with the Blazers taking him at 11 if other guys were off the board already. So he seems to check a lot of the boxes. Great size, stats to back it up, and just really seems like he's peaking at the right time. So
Yeah, I mean, I've heard several people say like he's going to be a star.
yeah, yeah,
Crazy, like now, my comparison that I shared with you a while back was Aaron Nesmith. It's a little bit bigger, but
yeah,
like Nesmith had that shortened season, but he was like he shot lights out.
right,
And you're obviously seeing like, yeah, he's not a star, but he's maybe the second tier defender on the perimeter for a finals team,
right.
he does shoot pretty much lights out. He's strong. He makes some stupid mistakes. I've heard Coward is very smart.
Mhm.
I mean, he went to Willamette. He paid money to go to Willamette to play basketball.
Yeah,
Like, and you can't just get into Willamette either. Like, there's not an athletic scholarship that they can just take you if you have bad grades. Like, he seems
right.
like a smart dude. I've heard some interviews with him.
Yep.
One of the comps I heard was freaking Kawhi Leonard, and you're like, oh,
Yeah, I
it's
heard that
like,
one too, and I kind of
yeah, I
kind
think
of
that's a little, but
yeah,
like people are really impressed with him. He was great at the
yeah,
combine. His interviews have been great. He's had a few workouts, and there's like a part of me that's like, gotta maybe take it,
yeah.
if he's at
He's
11.
really intriguing as a prospect. So,
Yeah,
and he's kind of just like, I think if he was like 18 or 19, you're probably looking at him top
top
five,
three. Yeah,
top three, maybe.
I
Yeah,
would say top three. If you have those numbers and you're
yeah,
19, yeah.
yeah,
But and that's the thing is like obviously the D3 season,
yep,
he kind of proved himself. But I do think similar to Dame, there's like a chip on the shoulder type of guy that you're
yep,
like, hey, this guy wants to prove himself. Whatever level he gets to, he wants to keep going up. Like I had to go to D3, then I had to fight my way
yeah,
to, a pretty low level D1 school. No, um, not to disparage Eastern Washington University,
sure, sure,
um, but yeah, and then even Washington State, like the non-Pac-12 Washington State, like wasn't. you're not playing at like that high of a level. But
Yeah,
then Duke notices you, like that's a really good sign to
that's a
me.
good sign.
Yeah. So yeah, he's and again the measurements I've mentioned it several times. Like that's your prototype for like a small
Yep.
forward
Yep.
shooting guard guy. And I think his biggest the biggest complaint I've heard like doesn't have an advanced handle in any way.
Right.
But his shooting is very smooth. I don't know if you mentioned it, but like pull ups and spot ups, which
Right.
and then like yeah, he's a good defender. Like he gets a lot of blocks,
Yeah.
which is always interesting as a wing player for guys to get blocks
Yep.
from behind and at the rim. I mean, that's one reason like I think Tumani thinks so highly of Tumani, like
Right.
challenges dudes at the rim. So yeah, there's like I think a month ago he was like, "Oh, this guy's cool. Maybe he'll make the first round." And
Mhm.
now I was like, "God, should he be in the top 10?" Like I was thinking that highly of him. So,
Yep. I've seen him mocked somewhere. Like I've seen him mocked like pretty early, as well as outside of the lottery as well. So he's
yeah.
got a pretty wide range. But I
Uh,
think when people look at his resume and see D3, that's
yeah.
certainly a deterrent. And then his age are the two biggest
But the
things.
fact that he just keeps going to the next level, like
Yep.
that's and he was planning to go to Duke until people were like, "No, you're going to get picked." Like,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
also a good sign, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, the only guys I had above him that we haven't mentioned yet was Carter Bryant. I had him at 12,
Okay.
and then Noah Esinge, I think is how you
Yeah.
pronounce it, the
Yep.
French guy
Yep.
who he actually we saw him play last year against the Blazers, and he actually had a pretty good game, but
Yeah.
he was rail thin, and now he looks much more filled out. I think he's pretty young.
He's really young. He's like
18.
turned 18, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's been having a hell of a run in the I don't know if it's Eurobasket, but whatever the hell playoffs he's in
Yeah.
right now. Like he's really sprung up because of those, and he looks like he's getting it, but he moves well. He has a pretty fluid shot. I think he's like mid to low 30s percentage wise, but it's one of those things that it's gotten better over the season. Defensively, I think he's 6'8", no shoes.
Yeah.
Where did you have Isingay?
I had him at 15, so right in this
Okay.
range as well. Like I
Okay.
had him right outside the lottery, but I actually had him higher. I just, again, when we kind of related to the Blazers specifically,
Yeah.
I'm just like, we kind of have this guy in Ryan Rupert already. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some
Well,
similarities
we
there.
also are just flush with other wings, and we have
Yeah.
pretty much our incumbent starters, right? And that doesn't even count Jeremy Grant. So it's kind
But
of
he
hard to
is
see. Yeah.
he's one of those guys where like it's a bit of a roll of the dice just because he's so young, but he shows a lot of tools. He's really gangly, like
Yeah.
he literally has like star upside. Like
Yeah.
he could
You know who you mentioned Ryan Rupert, who's also been compared to this guy, but he's got some Batum in
yeah,
him,
yeah, he's
you
got some
know.
potential. Yeah.
And but when Batum came in, he didn't have the playmaking skills, that took him a few years, but just kind of that raw understand. I mean, I think people kind of forget like Batum started as a rookie on a
Yeah,
54 win team, like he kind of filled all those little spots like he was the
yep,
defender and I remember him dunking on Rudy Gobert and Pau Gasol, and had like really just long and skinny and so, yeah, I mean, I would be happy with a player like that with
oh totally.
yeah, but what about Carter Bryant? Where did you have him?
Yeah, I had Carter Bryant, I believe, at my 13th pick, so
Okay,
probably similar range to where
cool.
you had him as well. Yeah, I have Carter at
And I would say these guys are pretty interchangeable for
yeah,
me, but Carter Bryant's also like again that prototype
yeah,
of, and I think the only knock on him is like he just didn't start at
yeah,
Arizona, but I mean they were a really good team. He shot well. He didn't shoot a lot, but he did shoot well. He's
yep,
very athletic. He's really filled out. I can totally see him like his comparison has been Tumani, which is good.
yep.
Obviously a lot younger. Like I don't think you can go wrong taking a guy like that in the late lottery. Um, like again, he's what, 19?
Yep.
I think he's pretty young too. But
He's young. I think he's
yeah,
19.
like if you watch some of his plays, he's very athletic, bouncy athletic, kind of covers a lot of space, looks to be a good help defender. I think he's a worthy project. And again, his shot's pretty good. So, like, we don't maybe really know how good he
Yeah,
could have been. Like, again, not at Arizona, just struggled to it wasn't that he couldn't get minutes, it was more of like an opportunity on offense. They just had a lot of other
right.
and I mean, they went to the Elite Eight, right? So it's not like
Yeah,
that was some crappy team. I don't worry about him in the Zach Collins sense. At first, I was like, "Oh, great, another guy who didn't start, for his team."
right.
Um, but yeah, what's your take on Carter?
Yeah, I like him. I think he's like you're saying, if at the late lottery, especially, you want a guy. If you're kind of going for fit at that point, you kind of want to try to blend a little bit of like, all right, what's the ceiling of this player, but also can we get some like immediate production from him? And I feel like he's kind of that archetype where you're just like, hey, 3-and-D guys are always going to be productive,
Hmm.
and if he can slot into like an 8 through 10 rotation player by season's end, and there's a little bit of room for even more production, then I think that that's a worthy flyer. He's got good size. I think he weighs like 215, 220, 220. Like he's
Yeah,
pretty
he
muscular.
is for a 19-year-old
Yep.
is built. Yeah. Like,
Not, he just, to your point, he just didn't have a lot of usage. So it's kind of tough to be
yeah.
like if he had more usage, you probably have a better idea of like it might actually hurt him, right? Like if it's like,
Sure.
oh, this guy with more usage, like that volume really impacted his efficiency type of deal. Like you
Yeah.
never know, like that could have been actually bad for him. So you never really know with the usage conversation if that's going to be helpful or hurt a player's
And
like
yeah,
stats.
to counter that too, like in some ways, you have these guys that they've been the star at where they
Yeah.
go, and then they come to
Yep.
the NBA and they have to adjust to not being the star, and that's
Yep.
that's really hard for them. And he's the opposite of like, hey, you already know you're not the star. You're going to do all these intangibles and get good at them, and then in the background, that's where you'll work on your three-point shooting and your handle and things like
Yep.
that, and then slowly kind of, we don't need you to do anything else. We need you to do those other things. Whereas for the stars, it's like, I'm nothing without the ball,
Yeah. Exactly.
sometimes. So
Exactly.
it's they struggle a little bit. Okay,
And
so
shot
did you have
40%.
anyone else in the top 14 that we didn't mention?
Yes, for me, I have a couple guys that I can just touch on briefly, but they're because you obviously a little bit of differences there, but we can
Yeah.
also throw them into the like this late lottery, early non-lottery
Sure,
selection.
sure. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting at is like our next few. But
So so I had outside of the players that we've already talked about, which we obviously had some similarities. I know this one you're not going to agree with because we've already chatted about him, but I had Jace Richardson in my 11 slot.
I have him
No,
at
he's small.
22 is where I had him.
Yeah, so no, he's small. During the course of the season, just really developed that self creation, knows how to run the pick and roll, which I think will allow him to play point at the next level because he showed a lot more of that later in the season. The other thing is, like, I just think that he has a lot of intangibles. I know that's a cliche term at the NBA level, but he just seems like a real heady, like
He has
intelligent
he
player.
has basketball intelligence for
And
sure.
the other thing that just from a statistical perspective, he shot like lights out. Like
Yeah.
he shot 41, 42% from three. I think 48 to 50% from field goal, like just in general.
49. Yeah.
Um, Decent wingspan. I know he's only 6 feet, like, but 6'6" wingspan. I kind of compare him to like that this player really, before his injury was like, wow, where did this guy come from? Jared McCain. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
Also a smaller guard, not necessarily the de facto point guard at the NCAA level, but just like that type. I don't like the term combo guard, and it kind of makes me like, I know he wasn't the traditional point guard for that Spartan
Yeah.
squad, but I just like his style of play.
I
So,
mean,
and
you
I,
could see him on a like plug him into OKC next to any of those other defensive
mhm,
minded guards
mhm,
and with SGA still in there, or bigger ball handler and he's the secondary ball handler, things like that, I think can work. I don't probably see him as a starter, so that also might not be a problem. Like usually your backup point guard doesn't have to be as true of a point guard, or at least as much of a burden on them. So
yeah. And
Like,
see, I can see him. I can see him. I'm just higher on him. I can see him as an
yeah,
eventual star. I've seen some mocks where he's up in the 6, 7 range now. I've seen some where, to your point, he's outside the top 20. So he
yeah,
has at this level, you're going to expect some range on that. I'm just higher on him, I would say, than most. I liked his just development as a player over the course of the season. I
yeah.
also like Tom Izzo. Like he's pretty hard nosed, doesn't like to play a lot of freshmen, and Jace Richardson was getting a lot of run and like,
He has a legacy, though.
yeah. But I mean, like in the tournament, like you don't care
Sure.
what you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
anyway, so that's
Anyone
my
else
take.
you had in the top 14 that
Yeah, briefly, the other guy I have that's kind of I think maybe my Tristan da Silva type from last year is Neat Clifford.
Oh, I got him at 15.
Oh,
So,
awesome. I have him at 12. Yeah.
yeah.
So just a really well-rounded player. Also, I think 23, 24 years old.
Yeah.
Um,
He's older. But
I
the
just
way
like,
he's been described as a bigger Josh Hart is like, oh, that's
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
He's
He
like a bigger,
averaged 18, 19 points, basically 10 rebounds, and
and four assists. Yeah.
basically five assists.
Yep.
Like shot 50% from the
Yep.
field. I think he's probably a better shooter, but yeah, he seems to be a guy. It's like everyone needs a dude like that.
Yep.
You know, I wouldn't expect him to be a big scorer, but you know, yeah, Josh Hart, bigger Josh Hart. That's
Bigger Josh
awesome.
Hart with me. I mean, probably not the rebounder that Josh Hart is at his size at the NBA level, but maybe
Maybe.
he's a
I mean,
little better
10
shooter.
a game in college is not bad.
No, I know, but I mean, like at the NBA level,
Sure.
and then maybe a better shooter slightly, right? Like Josh
Yeah.
Hart's not a great 3 point shooter, so I like his overall game, and again, I'm just different in the fact that I liked. I think both of us are similar in the like that the older age like a prospect is doesn't really like deter us from like wanting to draft him. So
No, no, especially now.
yeah,
Um, like if we're looking like if he ended up on the Blazers, I'd be completely happy. Probably not
yeah,
at 11,
yeah,
um but like yeah, someone's gonna get him later. Yeah, he shot 38% from three
yeah,
this year
yeah.
on 5 attempts a game.
Yep.
That's pretty
That's not
good.
nothing.
Yeah, he's a fifth year senior.
Yep.
And he really broke out the last 2 years. He did play in a crappy conference. He went,
Yeah.
he was at Colorado, which is also funny because Jabari knows him.
Oh, right.
Walker,
Right.
they played together when they were
Yep.
there. So that connection. But yeah, I think he's one of those guys someone's going to get a good value out of him.
Yep.
Um, yeah, some of the guys I had on the precipice, we mentioned Malawak earlier. I had him at 14.
Yep.
After Neek at 16, I have Nolan Traore.
Okay.
He's a super fast French guard, but he's not
Yep.
really that good at anything else.
Yep.
But I do like his, like at one point he was a projected like top five. So there's something there. And then I
Right.
have a bunch of big men. So I'm just going to list them all off in order. I have Rasheer Fleming.
Yep. I have as well.
People see he's gotten some comparisons to like a Kawhi in a way too. Like
Yeah.
I do not see him as a small forward at all.
Right.
I can't like maybe he can guard him a little bit, but like yeah, to me he's kind of reminds me of honestly like a poor man's Jabari. Not Jabari Walker. Jabari
Parker.
Smith Jr.
Oh, Jabari Smith Jr. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's 6'9" and he can shoot
Right.
theoretically. I mean Jabari could shoot in college quite a bit. Good defender. Probably he's a little bit bigger and better rebounder, but like I think he could find a spot coming off the bench for some
Yep.
having those minutes. Maybe like a Jay Crowder type guy, but like
Yep.
more of a four. And then I have Thomas Sorber, the Georgetown guy, Asa
Yep.
Newell, Derek Queen, which I know is in tons of lottery, and we do not like him.
I. Yeah.
They're like, oh, he's like Al Jefferson. I'm like, there's no guys in the NBA right now that are like
Yeah.
Al Jefferson. Like,
I
you,
just.
you can't
Yeah.
be a good post scorer, like good. I mean, if you're elite, fine, but a
Yeah.
good post scorer with no defense, you just can't.
Agreed.
Like,
I think there's just too many defensive limitations. There are some people that love. I mean, there's
he
people that
can
have
play
it.
the four. No, he
Yeah.
can't.
I mean, he's not a great 3-point shooter to my knowledge, or didn't take a lot of them. Maybe he can develop that. But I mean, he is a connector. I mean, Maryland just made a hell of a run there in the tournament. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see it. But again, there's some pundits that have him really high. So maybe I'm just missing something on him. I'll just mention Noah Penda, another French player. I don't know if you have him in
I
your.
don't, he's not in my top 34.
Yeah, he's just kind of that, defense first type player. He's, I think,
Yeah.
225, 230 pounds. Like, I think he led his current league, his current
I think he
French
might have
league,
gotten really
steals and blocks.
Clint Capella was maybe a comp for him.
Yeah, he's much smaller than Clint though. Like, he's only like 6'7", 6'8".
Oh, is he that short?
Yeah, he's not. He's more of a like athletic, kind of one of those versatile, large wing,
Mogbo?
small. What's that?
Jonathan Mogbo or Mogbo?
Logo. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Um, So, and then he's also just got like some playmaking ability as well. So we don't need to really dive into too much more. The other guy I wanted to mention, and again, you're not gonna probably agree with this pick, but it's well, a couple quick guys. I'll start with Walter Clayton Jr. I already mentioned him,
Yeah,
Florida
I don't have
senior.
him in the top one, but I would agree like he's going to be a good value for someone.
Yeah. So I just like him in the probably the late first.
Where do you have Danny Wolf?
I saw I've seen Danny kind of all over the place as well. I like that you might like a team with a rim running or defensive first big might just
Yeah.
throw a pick at Danny or throw themselves at Danny just for like just a different look at center. It's not really my style of
No,
center
I think he's
in today's league.
a better playmaking, less worse shooting Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, like and I actually like Olenek. Olenek's pretty
Yeah,
versatile.
I do too.
Is
Yeah.
he like a Filipowski from last year
Yeah.
type of
I have him
player?
at
Like,
23. I mean, I think that's
okay,
like fair, right?
so
Like
late. Yeah, I would say anywhere in that like 18 to 25 range for him. Yeah, I've seen him as high as like 8 or 9 though.
the guy who's really moved up for me, who's also a center, is Maxime Reynaud from
Yeah, I've seen him too.
Stanford.
Yeah,
He can shoot and he can rim protect, and I'm like for the Blazers, I'm like, this is perfect. You get a little bit of the rim protection when he's in, and then you get the change
right,
you have a guy who can pick and pop outside or shoot and just kind of, I mean this in the best way possible, but like a Myers Leonard type of guy.
right.
Hopefully much smarter. Like, I mean, basketball smarts, not even the other smarts. Um, but yeah, he's the guy. Do you have any like kind of sleeper guys?
The one guy we haven't mentioned also is Liam McNeely. I've seen him mocked pretty
Yeah,
high
I have
as
him at
well. He's kind of just that
26.
floor spacer. Where did
Poor
you have?
man's poor man's Con Knuckle.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much. I
I mean, he
mean,
shot horribly. That's the problem. Like, I think you have to believe he's a much better shooter. I mean, he shot 38% from the field, you know.
right.
But he was supposed to be good. I think he'll
His
probably,
catch and shoots were like 44%
yeah.
or
Sam
something.
Hauser was like, you can talk,
That's probably pretty decent.
you
I
can
was thinking,
say, I mean, Sam Hauser's been averaging like 8 or 9 points the last few years on a really
yeah,
good team, and Sam Hauser actually is not a terrible defender. Uh,
right.
So, I mean, yeah, like you get a guy like that late lottery, that's fine. Do you see anyone in like outside of the guys we've talked about that projects, may not projects, but like has a star potential?
Boy,
I have one that I think has a possibility, but he could also do.
is it going to be Ben Seraph?
No, I do have him at 25.
Okay,
The
another
guy
guy.
who I've really kind of come around to, and he didn't like score all that much. He played for UNC, Drake Powell.
Oh, Drake Powell. Yeah, yeah,
He's super fast and athletic. He's like a legit 6'5". He shot pretty well. I'm like, God, this is a guy I could say. Maybe star potentials is strong, but like I see him as like, oh, he's going to be much better like as a pro than he would be. Um, like I think he'll be better than Nas Little, for example. He's kind of a similar profile, not like as big of a guy, but and
right.
then the other guy is who, and I don't really know why he's not projected as high, but he's a big point guard. He shoots the hell out of the ball. doesn't not a great playmaker, but a good defender, Tyrese Proctor from Duke.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's 6'5", good defense and can shoot. And you see him as a point guard. He went back to school. He was supposed to come out last year. And as much as I hate the Dukies, I mean, he's really good. Like
Yep.
if you get him, I have him at 30. Like if you get him in the late first round or early second round, like that seems like a really good pick. So Blazers don't have a second round pick as of yet, so
Yeah.
it's
Maybe
not
we
as
buy
fun to
into
look
one.
at these guys. But yeah, there's a bunch of like Mark Sears is one of those guys. I'm like, yeah, take him with a second.
Yeah, true.
You liked him last year a lot, didn't you?
Who was that?
Mark Sears.
Oh, Mark Sears. Yeah, that point. Yeah, yeah. That was. I remember we talked about him quite a bit last year.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah,
kind
just
of he his shooting percentage dropped off a little bit, but I mean, he's still good. Like Cam Jones is another like right out of that Wesley Matthews, Jimmy Butler, Marquette guy. Like,
we talked about Nemhard, right? Like just that
yeah, I don't
straight
think
up
he'll
point
get
guard.
drafted, but like
Yeah.
he'd be perfect as a G League guy.
Yep.
Another Dink Pate. He's like a 6'7"
Oh, right.
guard. He played for with Scoot on the Ignite, and then he's been in the Mexico City
Yeah.
Capitans.
Yeah.
But I've kind of liked his game just because he's a tall ball handler. But yeah, I think we covered pretty much everyone. I mean, I haven't seen any other sleepers. There's Micah Peavy from Georgetown.
Will Riley from Illinois. That's
Yeah,
kind of
I
an
just
intriguing
hate
freshman.
his shot.
Yeah, that's the thing with him. I just like it's um just projects as a pretty well-rounded player, but it's can he get the shot to fall? So at this range, you're like, it's a question of development versus immediate productivity, and where do you kind of see him on your roster? I'm also just weary of like, first round's guaranteed money, and you're like playing that game of like, like, are we, do we need to? What do we have as a guarantee here as a franchise, right? So you just kind of have to weigh that. But he's got good size, young, kind of a gangly guy. He's like 180 pounds, so
Yeah,
6'8". But
Jim Carrey, big teeth, kind of gangly.
yeah,
That I mentioned his name, but didn't mention much about him. But um, I go back and forth on Thomas Sorber, or is it Sorbet? Um,
Sorber, I think. Yeah,
he reminds me of Wendell Carter Jr.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
kind of ground bound, but like strong, really long arms and
Right.
pretty good touch. Like I think he's a little more athletic, maybe. And Wendell got a lot bigger, so it's kind of hard to remember what he was like when he
Yeah.
first came in the league. But short, right? I think he's like 6'8.5" without shoes,
I think
but he
he's
has
six
like
nine and a half without shoes.
oh, I thought he was 6'8.5".
Maybe I'm wrong.
But
Yeah,
he's not like your traditional tall center,
right.
right? But I could see him. He has really long arms, so I could see him being a pretty good late pickup. I have him at 18, but. Yeah, not loving this. I mean, honestly, I should move him up just because I like him. But Maxime, I would be like, yeah, take him.
Yeah,
Not at 11, but over
yeah,
some of these other guys. Like, I'd probably rather have him than Derek Queen, even though Derek Queen's a better basketball player. It's like if he's not a focal point of your offense, like what's the point? You
yeah.
know?
I don't see it with him. But now that we've said that, he's probably going to come in and just like win Rookie of the Year or something.
I mean, I'm trying to think of where he could go in the lottery that he would just get. I
Feels like
mean,
a very.
maybe he could fit in like, I mean, they wouldn't take him that high, but like Washington, next
That's what
to,
I was saying. I
yeah,
feel like he could fit in with Sarr at Washington.
yeah, a very mobile other big man that can guard guys. But yeah, I've seen him projected to Utah, and I'm like, yeah, him and Kessler, whew,
Yeah,
it's a lot of bodies down
you
low.
have to be able to shoot, like if you're going to be paired with the center like that. Like,
Yeah. Oh, and they don't have any other shooting really except for
yeah, they just need a lot of shooting, honestly.
yeah, I don't know what they'll do with marketing, but cool. Well, we can wrap this up and then
Yeah,
next week we'll try to put this into a full mock. I don't think it's going to be incredibly different.
probably not.
But I do think like some of the guys we had lower, like I mean Derek Queen, that guy, we might actually mock him much higher than we have him.
He
So
definitely will be mocked much higher. Yeah, just
yeah.
because there's
So
teams out there that are definitely intrigued by him. Yeah.
all right. Cheers everyone. See you next week.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching and listening.